So we ready to talk about technology and law? Durga, are we starting?
Yeah, I guess 18. So all the speakers are there, I guess. Yeah, we can start now.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome from Indian Lawyer Association. So first of all, I would like to thank all the esteemed guests who have made it today, despite their busy schedules. And so today's topic is very interesting. That is use of technology in legal firms and legal arena. This is a global topic, I would say. By the time the participants come in, I would request Mr. Navneet Chugh to brief on ILA, and then he can lead the session. Over to you, sir.
Good. Thank you, Durga. Thank you for joining, all of you. We started Indian Lawyers Association in 2018, about 6 years ago, as the first true Indian association, industry body for the lawyers. And it's a lot that needs to happen for the lawyers in India. We're not as free as we should be, and there's too many regulations that are not in favor of our industry, our profession. So we hope, we have ideas, we have suggestions, but more than that, we hope that we just provide a platform for all the 1.5 million lawyers in India to have conversation and chit chat. And do what needs to be done to fix the pendency of the 50 million cases, half of which the government of India is either plaintiff or defendant, the 12 million criminal matters that are delayed, divorce taking 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and lawyers not being allowed to advertise, and no contingency lawyering, and on and on and on. The list is endless, but we just want to provide a platform for the Indian lawyers to have a dialogue. Durga, you'll go ahead and ask the first question to the first panelist.
Yes, actually. Yes, sir. Actually, if Shitash is not able to join, so I was just talking to her. Sorry for that.
Okay. That's good. We have plenty of great panelists.
Yeah. So, Samriddhi?
Yeah.
Yeah, Samriddhi. So, welcome today, and good to have you here. My first question to you will be, how has the adoption of AI and technology transformed the legal industry in recent years?
Right. Thank you so much for having me here today. And thank you for the introduction to ILA, Mr. Navneet. So yeah, I think to answer your question, for me to be able to talk about just technology, it wouldn't begin from extremely complex technology that lawyers could use, but it would start from using basic tech like, say, Zooms or like a Teams platform, or say using Word to its fullest capacities. I think that is where the adoption of technology should really begin, and which has actually started happening in law firms and across law practices in India, where there's maximum usage of these technologies, which are already there, instead of trying to adopt something just for the sake of adopting it. So for me, adoption of technology looks something like adopting the basic tech tools first. And a lot of companies now have also now started adopting document management tools, like contract review tools. And I think these tools play a big role in starting AI and starting that technology conversation in most of these workplaces. And I think that's been the adoption of technology in the past few years, where we've tried to use basic technology available to us to its maximum capacity. And I think that should be our first goal as well, to do that, and then think of whether we actually need more advanced tools to help us in all of our processes as like a lawyer.
So what do you use personally? Do you use any of the ChatGPTs of the world?
Yeah, I mean, of course. If we're talking about technology and AI, I'm sure everyone uses ChatGPT to some extent. I think it's a great starting point for any sort of task. It at least helps you get some sense of start to any kind of project that you're doing. So for say example, you need to write an email that has to be long and detailed about certain documents, a summary of any kind of judgment, then it's a good place to start. And then you could, so at least you don't have to go through the hassle of reading the whole thing. But I mean, that's where you can start at, and then again go and read so you have more context. So I think certainly we're playing with tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and now there are a lot more that have come into the market. So yes, for sure.
What's your favorite?
I personally really like Perplexity because it gives me like direct links to sources that I can just go and check. So that's been a great tool.
And is it free or do you have to
Yeah,
pay?
it is free, and it also has a paid version. So yeah.
Okay. Some judge in India was complaining that Indian lawyers write a lot and send a 30-page petition and 50-page pleading and 200-page pleading. I said, why don't you dump the pleading in ChatGPT and ask for a 2-page summary? And he didn't like that very much.
Yeah, I
But
think that's one of the challenges that we could certainly talk about that come with adoption of AI across not just law firms but also the judiciary, which is one of the most important parts of how justice is sort of delivered, as well as where the conversation about technology should even begin, for that matter.
right. So a lot of countries and a lot of jurisdictions have page limits for pleadings. So what's up with India? How come we can't have a page limit?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
So a lot of countries have page limits for pleadings when you file them in court. 5 pages, 10 pages, 15 page, 20 page. But the Indian courts don't want to adopt a page limit. If we have 50 million pending cases, then we should have a page limit, right? So, and with the use of technology, I would think judges should tell lawyers that, hey, why are you giving me a 100-page pleading? What are you writing in 100 pages that you can't write in 10? Go to one of these models and convert your 100 pages into 10 and don't bug me to read 100 pages. Why can't the judges do that?
Right. I think I think one challenge that comes with is generally the mindset, because what has been followed for the past years is just continuing, and people don't want to change so quickly, and having to make decisions to change is just as hard as starting the conversation about change. So I think that's the biggest roadblock that probably comes into the picture when people are thinking of changing some kind of process or norm that they have been following. And I think it starts from that first place where when someone in the court comes and does something differently, and then when that is questioned, I think that could be like a great place to start talking about whether having something in fewer pages is more efficient than what's being followed, because what's being followed necessarily might not be the most efficient. So I think people should start setting standards by themselves in terms of the profession, and then the conversation could certainly start from there.
Good. Thank you. Durga? Durga, you have the next question for the next panelist.
Yeah.
By the way, before you answer, introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Ipshita, I would like to ask you the next question.
Sure. Thank you, Durga.
Yeah. So, Ipshita, how can technology and AI be leveraged in private client practices?
Sure.
And please have your intro first.
Yes. My name is Ipshita Bhabania. I'm a principal associate at Khaitan & Co.
Your child needs these 3 key factors to get into an Ivy League.
And thank you so much to Mr. Chugh and Durga for having me on the panel. So for those of you who may not know, private client practice is basically an institutionalized practice for estate planning, tax planning for high net worth individuals, promoters, and the like. The role of technology in a field which has such historical underpinnings, such as making wills and making trusts, firstly, it sounds kind of oxymoronic, and which is why I really agree with Samriddhi when she said that we should not be looking at technology as just the most exotic forms of technology like AI, but a lot of more more easily adaptable things like Zoom, which is often a challenge for a lot of our clients. And sometimes I even receive printouts of emails from US lawyers because they don't like to type out their own emails and they actually dictate it to their secretaries. But having said that, in my practice, while we do still manually make wills, I feel like I see a lot of will making softwares out there, and I see a lot of companies start, having created apps in making wills. And I feel like this is something that can be automated to a large degree. And I feel automation is not required, perhaps when you're making a single person's will, but rather when you're looking at making wills for 20 people or for 50 people. And this actually comes in when you're talking about enterprise sales, and you're pitching services to a large organization for providing services to, say, the entire C-suite, or say the high tier of professionals. So at a point like that, automation could bring in a lot of efficiencies for the lawyers involved. It could also reduce costs for the client. And that is where I see a very immediate use for AI, or even if not AI, just really well-designed apps that are designed, in consultation with lawyers who can tell them what are the needs of the clients and what needs to be built into apps.
So in your practice, what technology tools and software do you use on a consistent basis?
So Mr. Chugh, I actually, in my daily work, I would not say that I get to use much technology because a lot of my work is highly customized. But there are many times, and I've used ChatGPT as have all of us, for those for that kind of work, which can be, for example, preparing a summary of the law somewhere, or for just putting down points in a more lucid fashion, or even for suggesting article titles, because we write a great deal on our subject matter, and sometimes you've written an entire article and then you're at a loss as to what should be the title. So things like that are, ChatGPT really does save a lot of time and a lot of brainstorming, and it puts in front of you a lot of options. So I personally find that really helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you, Durga. Dharmendra, you have a question? Go ahead. Okay, Durga, go ahead. Next question.
Yes. Thank you, Ipshita. Hi, Vasundhara. Hello, Vasundhara. Oh, I guess she has not joined yet. I'll go to next question. So, hi, Jay.
Hello, hi Durga.
Hi. So the next question is, what future advancements in AI or technology do you foresee having the greatest impact on the legal industry?
So that's a great question, Durga. I'll introduce myself first. I'm Jay Nene. I'm a senior associate with Legal Logic. It's a full service law firm based out of Pune, and I work with the tech team. I specialize in privacy, technology laws, AI, Web3, all the new advancements in laws or innovations that have disrupted other industries. And I think it also comes from a keen interest in understanding how those domains may disrupt our industry. So there's a lot to talk about when it comes to how a lawyer should be adopting technology. Uh, so I'll try and touch upon all those points. And to give you a brief background as to where I look at tech in law is we do advise a lot of clients who have adopted, say, generative AI for different use cases, right? From adopting, say, third-party AI APIs in their platforms to sort of make certain practices obsolete. So, for example, support staff in e-commerce, we do support a client who has worked on a chatbot to make it as realistic as possible, and we just see that getting obsolete. Or somebody using a GitHub Copilot, a AI assistant, which makes coding so easy and so simple that everybody wants to adopt it and wants to know what are the risks or how trustworthy is it for their domain. And that's where I think that as lawyers, uh, we need to look at technology and evaluate it in a certain way where we need to understand where we can leverage it, bring it up to a trustworthy level where it can be adopted by everyone. And yeah, when we talk about AI, it looks like it's some fancy technology, but if I really ask amongst us who has heard of AI, there'll be a large chunk, 80-85% of lawyers who know that AI is out there. If I ask them that whether they have used AI, there'll be at least 50-40% of those who have had a shot at AI, tried to open the free version of GPT and ask some questions, maybe not related to law, but like summarizing articles or for brainstorming ideas. And if you really ask them that, have you used it in your practice? I think we'll end up with about 10-15 of those percent of those who have actually used it for their own purposes. And that's where the gap is, I feel, where other domains like software engineers have gone ahead and trained that AI to make it useful, to embed it within their existing platforms to a level where anybody can access them and use them very easily. There is higher level of accuracy, higher level of trust, and that makes adoption of that technology easier. And it is happening when we look at legal tech. Those who use CLM have large databases about contracts with them. So leveraging that for different use cases, right from contract review to summarizing trends in your contract and using them for some live use where I'm actually looking at a document for a client and checking if I can put red lines down, and if an AI assistant is giving me those red lines, it is happening. For quite a lot of CLM platforms have pivoted to this. While we talk about this wonderful technology, whether adoption can happen about from the grassroots, and that has been a theme that everybody has talked about. Uh, I remember a clip from the Supreme Court of India where an iPad was being passed around instead of pages and pages of documents, and I think even the current Chief Justice is quite bullish about technology, be it from use of iPads and eliminating paper to even adopting uh, technology in the sense where lawyers can appear before courts, and it has its own challenges, and technology requires it has a curve till the time it's adopted. But even the basic ones are being adopted. Uh, I can see changes right from a policy level where there is a push for online dispute resolution. I mean, the latest Data Protection Act also talks about a new way of working for lawyers and for across the bar with the bench and the regulators as well. There is a new digital platform which is going to be the regulator, and everything's going to be on.
So Jay, you use Word, Excel, Acrobat or Microsoft PDF, and Outlook or Gmail and Google. What 2 or 3 things more you wish you had at your disposals that you could use and would make you more productive and efficient?
So I would ask for a single tool which has everything integrated, right? So when I look at Outlook, when I look at Excel and all those things, I would love to have an API which will bring all my tasks, all my billing, all my proposals, all my reminders in one place, all the documents that I have to review, that I have to advise on, all the notes that I have to work on in one place, with a AI assistant on top, which is trained on legal documents, which is a legal specific AI. I would love to have a Word add-in, which is already there, where it gives me suggestions as to red lines. I'd love to have a AI assistant which is linked to great platforms like, say, direct case laws which are available on court websites. So platforms that link with that database and give me real-time updates as to what is the latest precedent on certain topics. And having that all together is the way forward. And we do see that in other domains. For example, GitHub has a very rich AI plus public code repository which can be leveraged by them, and we need something like that as well as lawyers.
So you basically don't want to do any work, do you?
We want to do work, and it should be. I think that's the question, right? So, do clients expect you to do this? Do clients expect you to use cutting edge technology? The answer is yes. I'll share a link after I'm done. So there is a LexisNexis report which has done a massive survey, and it asks all of these questions. And we see data across 200 firms as to what is the expectation, and even clients expect us to use this technology and deliver value when it comes to billing. And as lawyers, we want this technology to increase that billing. So it works out at the end.
Right. What about billing, for hourly billing? How do you trap that?
So of course, hourly billing may suffer when it comes to use of AI, and where we are able to do tasks quicker. But and it also does deliver value. If your client delivers good quality of work in a shorter turnaround time, then they should value that ability being delivered through tech.
And do you enter your time into a software every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, once an hour at the end of the day, or what?
Yeah, so yes, time booking is one of those places where revolution should happen. Everybody sort of books time, and that's how things work. We have a software to book time, but it would be great to have someone or a software to track our productivity. Of course, there is issues with privacy, but it would be great to have that tracked as well.
I remember when I first started practice many years ago, before any of you were born, and we had this software time slips. And every 15 minutes, we had this phone system where the office manager could get on the phone and pick up the phone and dial whatever 123, and it would ring on everybody's phone, or they could hear it. It wouldn't ring, it would just be on their speaker. And the office manager would say, "It's 11:15 now, please make an entry into time slips." This happened all day long because people were not doing it. So we said, okay, it was new. So we figured we're going to have to do something crazy to remind people and to brainwash them and get them used to doing it until it becomes a habit. Then there were always 2 or 3 people that wouldn't do it. And then chasing them a week later, a month later, at the end of the month, you have to send an invoice to clients with all the hourly billing. Then we're chasing 4 people. So then I made a rule. We were younger and smaller practice and one office, so I could do all this stuff back then. And I made a rule that every single employee, when they go home in the evening, they have to stop by my office, and I had a time slips tray on my desk, and I'd say bye to me and leave your time slips sheet printed out on my in tray. Then I would take them home and review them and make changes to it and bring it back the next morning and give it to them to fix. This is how what we had to do for a few months till everybody got trained. Now 30 years have gone by and nothing has changed. There's still 2, 3, 4 people that won't do it, that need to be reminded. We send emails. We start locking. Occasionally we do it, but then we would lock people's computers if they came
I'm
in the
working,
morning.
maybe 5 minutes.
With people come in the morning, and we would lock their computers if they hadn't entered their time slip of yesterday. And so they had to call up IT and then make noise. The office manager would find out, the finance manager would find out. And 4 people get on the phone and say to that person that, hey, we'll turn your computer on, but first, within 15 minutes, you have to send us your time slips. And if you don't, we're going to lock you out again. And at times, the IT person couldn't be found. So this person's just sitting there for 2, 3 hours working without computers. But it's the kind of crazy stuff you have to do.
Yeah.
I always tell my employees, we're a kirane ki dukaan and you're selling wheat and oil and sabun and sugar and tea and not recording it. So we're the cash register. Yeah, it takes a while. Anything else you want to share, JJ, since I interrupted you?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think you're right. And while laziness will bring in innovation, but you still need to work around the discipline to adopt technology, and it's still there. We send in screenshots instead of a printed paper. But yeah, I think I'll share a couple of links for the audience. Some of the surveys that I spoke about, and they answer a lot of questions, a lot of inhibitions about adopting technology, where to invest, why do I invest in technology, and if you have some decision makers that you need to speak to, I think those reports will come in handy and help you adopt the new technology. Thank you.
By the way, all the people that are speaking on the panel, feel free to ask questions of other panelists. Everything is fair game today. You agree to be on the panel, you agree to share everything about your life, including the name of your first girlfriend, Jay. Okay, forget. All right. Durga?
Thank you, Jay. Thank you. And thank you that you will be sharing those links. It will be very helpful for all of us. Okay. Aditi, next question is for you. Hello.
Yeah, hi, hello.
Yeah, Aditi. So the question is, how to navigate data privacy and security challenges while leveraging AI tools in law firms? Aditi, first introduce yourself and then go ahead with
So, hi everyone. I'm Aditi. I'm currently a data privacy and protection consultant at Saro Consulting, and I'm joining in from Bengaluru. So, when we look at data privacy and security, I think law firms are very interesting targets for hackers when it comes to data privacy, like when it comes to a lot of data in the law firm, because law firms has very interesting data. Like they have PII, they have secrets of we don't know how many organizations depending on the size of the law firm, and they have like financial data of organizations and of personals they deal with. So they have like all kind of data. Law firms have all kind of data, and yeah. So as lawyers, it's already there in our code of ethics that we have to abide by the confidentiality of our clients. So if any law firm is using technology into their day-to-day operations, and if they are entering or sharing their clients' data with any other technology, then I think they should, before onboarding any third-party vendor or before onboarding any client, so we should do the due diligence, like we should assess the risk through by keeping in mind that what kind of other integrations that third parties are using when it comes to run the software, and how the data is being processed and how it is being stored in that software, and is the data being deleted once the use of the data is completed. So all these things we have to keep in mind. And other than this, I think the law firm internally also they have to streamline a lot of things. They have to train their associates on how to handle that data, and they have to take care of the proper persons, like having proper set of information, like no other person should have information of any other client, so that the confidentiality is maintained and the data is also not being misused. So yeah, these are some, I think, tips which we can follow. There are like many things more we can talk about. I want.
So, Aditi, what are the biggest mistakes law firms are making in not ensuring data privacy, and what can they do?
I think the biggest mistake law firms are making is they have not trained their associates to identify like small things, like how a phishing mail is, or how does it looks, and which link to you should click on, and what are the do's and don'ts of like basic handling of the technologies. So I think, yeah, being a lawyer, somewhere educating on this purpose is very essential, as well as I think law firms have to think about the worst case scenario. What if a data breach happens in my law firm? No matter how small the law firm is, no matter what is the size of the law firm, but they should be prepared for any worst case scenario. If the breach happens, then they should have a plan in place, like how to handle that breach. And every employee should be trained on for handling those emergency situations. So yeah, this is what it is.
Good, thank you. Durga?
Yeah, Aditi, one more question. How has technology impacted the speed at which legal services are delivered? What are your
I
views?
think, yeah, definitely, the productivity has increased. But at the same time, I think one thing is there, like we cannot completely rely on technology for now, as we all know that the technologies are also at a developing stage. Few softwares are there which are still in the testing stages, and for that matter, even ChatGPT we cannot rely completely. We can, as Samriddhi and other panelists mentioned, that we always have a starting point. So yeah, we can have a starting point. We don't have to think from scratch, but definitely whatever work technology helps us to do, whatever work, we have to review it. We have to be very careful, because when I use like ChatGPT for drafting any policy or any document, I experience that the sentences in the policies are very incomplete sometimes. So that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't serve the purpose. So I have to start again. I have to start again from scratch. So for now, though, I don't completely rely on ChatGPT and stuff. But yeah, I use it as a starting point. And I would say that it has boosted my productivity in a sense, but it doesn't like completely helps me. I wish we have a formatting software where we draft a policy and the page gets formatted automatically. Like we don't have to look at how the numbering is, what the line spacing is. I'm quite irritated by those things nowadays. So yeah, that's all about.
Anybody, any of the other panelists, have you found such a software?
I haven't come across anything like that, but I would love to, because that's, I think, like a really big pain point to solve for.
Yeah.
One of our teams does use it, the transactions M&A team. They have a nice formatting software which also does clause referencing and all those. Personally, I never had to use that yet, but if I'll get that name and share it across to you.
Sure, it will be helpful.
Thank you, Aditi.
Thank you.
So now, hi Shivani. Hi. So now our next question to you is, can you provide examples of how AI and technology has improved the efficiency of legal routine tasks in the law firms?
Yes, first,
Yeah.
first of all, hello, Durga. I'm Sushuk, and with the panelists out here, my friends, colleagues, everyone. I'm Shivani, and I'm the co-founder of Business Demand, a law firm that works with creators and influencers, and essentially work in the intellectual property side and some part in the database as well. And yeah, moving on to how technology has improved the efficiency of routine legal tasks. I think one of the easiest thing we can say is document automation. I think that's something that everybody has really come across. Whoever has used technology has really come across document automation, like standard contracts or tools, or basically organizations that work in contracts and management tools, and some organizations that basically talk about, let's say, contracts can, for example, has a set of documents that really only talks about contracts, like NDAs, legal documents, or let's say petitions for that matter. Vakil Khoj is one website that I remember talks about different databases. One of the simplest, easiest tools that we have come across as law students in India that we routinely use and do not realize that they are legal tech softwares are basically SCC, Manupatra, Lexis, Westlaw. These are basically really small tools, large database tools that have a lot of legal stuff going on inside. Like they have a lot of how do you put it out there? You get access to a large database where you input certain things, you get results for that. You're looking for case laws, you get results. You're looking for certain documents, you get results. These are some of the tools that AI and technology has improved the efficiency of legal tasks. That being said, we also have other, like Aditi has mentioned, and even some people has mentioned, other panelists have mentioned, that basically using smaller tools like Word, etc. And ChatGPT, for instance, that's a very, very common tool. Google Bard, a very common tool. We always get into these software, use them as a starting point, and then go on ahead of them. Again, one of the things that usually big law firms usually use is KYC, not just law firms, but all organizations of firms, which is more like customer, basically checking digital forms, going through it. For example, if I would talk about banking is one industry, obviously. If I say, when I had started my HDFC account, everything was online, the process was online. Similarly, when you're taking a client onboarding at a big law firm, obviously, or even smaller law firms that use technology to basis, basically use softwares like KYCs, which makes the client onboarding process very streamlined and integrated and everything. I was working with a person who wanted to develop a certain kind of software, legal tech software, for different countries. They're based out of UK, and to build certain kinds of software that worked for that specific law firms. How the process works is, you input documents based on whatever the drafts, etc., was made in the previous law firm. Let's say if my documents, if this person comes to me, I put in all my documents, etc. Whatever, if I put it on Google Drive and folders and have like, instead of manually taking it out, I put it all of those in that particular software. After that, we take the software basically uses state-of-the-art natural language processing models, machine learning algorithms to analyze and understand text inputs. After that, they discover the creative response, the style, the tone, and the way we've written contracts, and create a very specific type of contract for them. For example, I want terms and conditions, or policy privacy, policy guidelines, or non-disclosure agreements. Basically, in the tone of my legal place, my workplace, my law firm, the tool itself develops it in the very specific tone and gives it to me, gives the output. Obviously, it's a process of running through it multiple times, having checks and rechecks all the time. But eventually it understands the tone, the style, the text, the content, and then tailors it according to your firm, your language, and the way that you are working on, right? So that particular tool enhances the productivity so much. I remember when Mr. Chud asked about the billable hours and all that, and Jay mentioning that the billable hours get lessened in that case. But I think at the cost of using the technology itself, I think a lot of clients, as Jay has mentioned, prefer that lawyers use technology, and AI being the new keyword these days. I think everybody, if you say that you're somebody who uses AI, how much of a small the AI tool is, clients are pretty much inclined towards it. Education to know what it is obviously matters. And obviously, getting the billable hours may reduce, but the bills may increase. So that's one thing that I always consider when you're using AI tools. And these are some of the things that, even workflow automations, for example. There is this website called Copy AI. It has multiple workflows. Let's say you want to type you want to generate leads, you want to generate marketing leads, you want to look out data, web scrape certain things. These are some of the softwares which are very, very essential when you are looking through doing some routine legal checks, like for example, contract vetting for that matter. You have to do a little bit of checks here and there. So web scraping, which are legal web scraping, obviously, you get through certain things, you see, you notice, you check out what certain documents, publicly available information gets put into it. One concern of using apps like ChatGPT is that when you have signed a non-disclosure agreement with the client, you are not allowed to put those things in a third-party vendor. Like Aditi said, you're not supposed to put that in a third-party vendor like ChatGPT. So a lot of your things you cannot use ChatGPT to put in things which the clients have put it out there, which the clients have to read certain documents, etc. You cannot put it in ChatGPT, because once anything that you put it on free version of ChatGPT at least gets out to the public, it obviously utilizes all the data and everything across the world. And somewhere, something might come which is public information. So ideally, the best thing to have is to integrate a software within your own organization. That's how it works the best. So in my opinion, that's one way, multiple ways actually, in which AI or technology is really improve the efficiency of routine legal tasks.
So Shivani, the lawyers are getting smart and using technology and now AI. But what about the rest of the system in the country, the bureaucracy, the government agencies, the courts? And if we're working at super high speed and efficiently, but the receiving party is still operating in the 19th century, then what's going to happen? And what can we do?
I think one thing that I would really like to agree with somebody on this is the mindset that comes with people. The mindset change, shift in mindset is what is really important. Education, imparting education regarding that. The way we learned how to use SCC and Manipatra was because my university, people brought in people to show us, to teach us how to use SCC and teach us how to use Manipatra. Aditi mentioned that associates need to be trained about being aware of phishing emails, because I know a lot of people, they fall for phishing emails and give out all their data, etc., which is scary sometimes. And this is the way the things go. And Jay has mentioned about our present Chief Justice being really active about the use of technology. I have personally been a party in front of his court. Honorable Chief Justice is very, very vocal about using technology, whether it's iPads, whether it's laptops. He is very vocal about going paperless. That is step one. Step two is obviously checking out and telling people that I know it comes with a lot of older lawyers are very hesitant to use legal tools these days. I know that lawyers are the Gen Z lawyers are very much into using their legal tools and software tools like these, but the older lawyers need a little bit of information. They need to be told a little bit. I think one thing is obviously holding sessions like these where people are naturally inclined towards the sessions, understand the importance of using technology in the legal field. And this is one way where we can obviously impart education for lawyers. And other than that, even when you're talking about online dispute resolution cases like mentioned, the steps is to develop to go on to the to understand, to start from the ground level of work, right? In the bureaucracy, as you mentioned, I think we have gone a lot towards digital India in the last multiple years. I think we have almost all of our payments have gone online. I am almost completely cashless these days. The only time I use cash nowadays is the meter wala autos in Mumbai, because I'm based in Mumbai. Other than that, even if I'm booking like Ola or Uber or something like that, I cannot use cash anymore. And the vendors, the street shops, even the dhabe wala, the pani puri wala, for instance, they have gone cashless, right? So they have started integrating technology in their day-to-day lives. A few years ago, we would have not imagined smartphones being used by everybody. Smartphones were a luxury, and now smartphones is something that's very common. So I think over the period of time, when people are introduced to processes like these, I think that's one way how which we understand that, things get fastened out. One thing that you mentioned was the page limits one. I remember you asking somebody about that. So the page limit one is obviously a huge problem because love writing a lot. We have no page limits. But I remember being in Chief Justice's court, and he had very straightforwardly mentioned that this whole document is just nothing but like 10 pages of whatever could have been mentioned. And I know that a lot of judges these days, I know High Court judges, Delhi High Court judges, and even Supreme Court judges are very open and vocal about reducing the number of pages, because that's one thing that can be, that's one thing that can really reduce their workload as well and improve the efficiency of cases. Otherwise, if the person on the other end does not do it quicker, obviously we cannot force them to do it quicker, but we can obviously let them or their teammates know in a different conversation, so perhaps some other time, that these are the software that we are using. Some are very hesitant to use. At some point, some people might be very hesitant to use, but it eventually comes over the time. I think there is something like a peer pressure kind of thing, which works everywhere. The human psychology works like that. And when you see Chief Justice's court, when the Chief Justice started imposing that, use iPad everywhere, or use laptops, use phones, whatever it is, just use technology and don't come in my courtroom with bundles and bundles of files. I think the other courts also started doing the same. So I remember the courtrooms also taking the things into account, and that sort of comes naturally over a period of time to understand. And at the lower level, at the higher level, people understand eventually. I think stuff like this really takes time, but we can see that
पानी निकल नहीं रहा है संतोष, तो पूरा बंद हो जा रहा है, तो उसमें का ध्यान गल जाएगा.
Sorry, Durga, can we mute people that are not speakers?
so.
Okay.
I did, yeah.
So
Thank
I
you,
think.
Shivani.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing. I think that's one thing we can understand. Everything starts at the ground level, teaching people. I remember we used to have computer cafes, where computer classes. Even now, people have computer classes on how to learn computers. One of the people who used to come around, and even the society, the cleaners, they would come up, and their kids would go to computer classes to learn computer. softwares, and some people, even if for somebody who has to work in a call center, for instance, has to know what a computer is and to learn and everything. Nowadays, everybody has computer, everybody's learning. So ground level, things are going. We started with the technology of using phones and smartphones. We can go a little bit upwards after that. So it goes up.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anybody else have a question for Shivani? Okay, Durga. Next.
Thank you, Shivani. Oh, nice to have those paperless courts. The day should come that we will be paperless, especially in the court system where files of cases are just lying. Thank you. Yeah. Now my next question will be to Kulwan. Hi, Kulwan.
Hello, Mr. Navneet, and hi to all panelists.
Yeah. Hi, Kulwan. So my question is, how is AI and technology being used to streamline due diligence process in mergers and acquisition?
So yeah, see, basically we need to understand mergers and acquisition is all about data, right? It's the buy side and the sell side of it. The two parties involved in it are the buy side and the sell side. So what are the basic requirements that we need to understand from the buy side? So the buyers, they just need to know and understand. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So what we need to understand from the buyer side is the data that they have been given. The authentication of that data is very important and essential. And the background of the company, any kind of media related issues they have faced or the employment related issues they have ever faced. So those are the things, and the data is very essential at that given point of time. So how do they access all of it? Because obviously they are getting into that merger and acquisition part of it. So what is being provided by the seller, they just have to abide by it. There's a lot of background which verification which needs to be done. So how does this come into the picture, which is that is where the AI helps, because it is all about data mining, right? It's all over there, spread across the internet. So digging that data is what AI comes into the picture. So you can just completely extract all of the information related to the company that is being acquired by the buyer. So this is where the AI is actually helping most of the people in the due diligence, and actually helping cutting short the duration of the research which is needed for the data mining. And again, same goes for the seller side also. They also need to know and understand what they are actually getting into it, the credibility of the association that they are coming into.
Yeah. Thank you.
So is there a software available that you've seen that helps with M&A and corporate and litigation and IP? Is there a software that
Yes,
people are using?
there is definitely, because I belong to the technology, not the qualified technical person, but some technology is something. So we come from the generation which used to have the handheld phones, the wired phones to the mobile and the smartphone. So we know the transition. And I would say that we were the brightest and the sharpest mind to actually get to that transition, where now it is the AI. So we have learned over the course of period. So technology is something which I'm really, I always love to explore new technology tools. So recently I got the opportunity to have the demo of Manupatra particularly. And the litigation part, which I feel most of the full service law firms struggle with, is about the direct integration of the codes. So they have a very good module and the feature where the software is directly integrated with a lot of codes, and all the court orders, they are updated real time in the systems. So you don't really have to follow up with the associates or maybe the litigation team ki acha batao kya hua, what was the order, kya status hai. So those are the things which is like updated real time. And obviously the cause list, you know that it's been updated. I mean, theek hai, wo, the judges, courts always give the next hearing date, but sometimes those hearing dates may get postponed or they get preponed also. So the daily cause list is one big task and activity. So that can also be auto-generated by this particular tool that I was having the demo of. And so I find it extremely extensive tool. And there is one which I really still have to take the demo, which is the IP related MikeTM. So MikeTM. This is an excellent tool, particularly for the IP related services. I still have to take the demo. I don't know much about it. And there is one particularly SpotDraft.ai tool. And this does lot of AI functionalities it has, and does a lot of automation of the day-to-day functionalities of our work. So these three are the major tools which I have seen that are working really good and picking up really well in the market, particularly with the Indian setup.
Right.
Yeah.
What are the biggest 2 or 3 challenges that you see or have seen in the M&A due diligence and documentation work?
Time consuming, a lot of time consuming activity, collaboration amongst the team, and most of the time the teams are sitting in different time zones. So real time updates are the essential activity which they need to be hands-on, right? I mean, if you're working in different time zones, you just can't have back and forth of the emails, right? So you just have to sit at one place, which is only cloud-based tools can only provide you that kind of access. So the conventional mode of having emails and then wait for the reply and again do the much needed correction. I think those are the biggest challenges which I have seen and faced. And certainly, I think third would be more around the validity and authenticated source of information. So that's also one big important challenge.
Do you ever feel like you want to do a due diligence and you're hell bent upon finding something wrong in the target so you can convince your client not to buy them?
Yes, but it all depends. You pick your battle. It's always about like if it is certainly a deal breaker, then we definitely push it. But if it's certainly a very subtle thing which can be ignored and it's not going to impact too much on business and revenue, yeah, it's as per how it the problem or the things have been coming to the picture.
Right. Do you ever tell your clients that more than 50% or even more percentage of the M&A transactions don't work out, and so be careful?
We don't actually start with the saddest note. Always be positive. Why we never start with the saddest mode, right? So always be positive. Yes, this will happen. We will definitely ensure that this will materialize 100% no matter what, unless the buying side or the client interest is the foremost for any law firm. You can understand very well. So all of us know that very well. So client interest is more important. And if that needs to be done, we will ensure that it is completely 100% fulfilled.
Yeah. I think what, in my experience, one of the reasons why a lot of M&A transactions don't work is that the integration is not done properly, and the buyer doesn't take the transaction very seriously after the transaction is done, and knows fully well that the seller, the owner of the business that's selling, is going to vanish in 6 months or 3 months or a year or maybe two, but doesn't plan to have transition in place. And all of a sudden, a year and a half goes by, and then they start waking up, and then the seller is pretty much turned off and got whatever earnouts they had coming. And then by the time the buyer wakes up, the seller is gone, and they spent $10 million buying this entity and
It's
not taking care of
majorly
it.
I understand the crux of the situation, and what I've actually been able to understand from it, it's mostly the lack of communication. You just have to communicate at every step. I mean, you just can't sit on the things and let it go. So this communication between the teams, I mean, it's not just about the buyer and seller communication, it's also the communication inside the team, internal communication of the teams, maybe in the buyer side or the seller side. Sometimes it's the lack of internal communication also, which is a big hindrance in materializing these M&A transactions.
Yeah. One big company, US company, did a transaction once. They bought one of my clients, and the day they took over, it was like February 15th, and I said to the buyer, a big US company, I said, I'll take care of the tax return for February since 15 days have gone by. They said, no, don't worry about it. We have it under control. I'm like, it's February 15th. You don't know what happened the first 15 days, and you're going to take care of it. And I said, okay, fine. So the morning of February 16th, they told us they'll be coming in, and they came in to take over and do they start the transition. At 22 people came from the buyer's side. Accounts, HR, AP, AR, payroll, engineering, production, everything. And just spent 2-3 days and talked to everyone, gathered everything, took notes, and vanished. That's how you do a transaction. Technology will help for sure.
Technology will definitely help in integrating all these parties, as you have just rightly said. Around 6-7 parties are involved when there is a M&A transaction. It's never just the buyer and the seller side. So the HR is also involved here, because the employee background, their credibility, what the complete picture from the HR side is important. Same goes with the IT. I mean, even the CTO is involved, because the product technology background is also utmost important. So bringing all these together, all of them together, and not having a technology in place where everything is compiled, everything is validated before you even sit for the talks. Because see, the human intervention, we understand, cannot go away from a legal world, right? So legal world is all about human intervention. But yes, technology can certainly play a big role in avoiding those kind of confusions and last minute of documentation. Okay, fine. Somebody may come up with some brilliant idea at the nick of the time and say, okay, let's get this document. So that kind of preparation is needed.
Right.
Right.
If anybody has any question for Kulwant, please go ahead.
Actually, Ramya Bhaskar has posted one question for all the panelists. It's just a second. She is asking, what is the mindset of small and mid-level law firms in adapting legal technology in India?
I would love to answer this because I've been with the startup ecosystem for a pretty long time. I mean, right now I'm with Tempest Law Associates, which is among the best law firm in India. But I can speak about my previous experiences handling with and dealing with those small law firms who were catering to the startups. So the biggest hesitation which I have seen is that resistance to change. And trust me, this mindset needs to go away. Technology is not for the software engineers. Please, guys, do understand that part. Technology, they are only making our life easier. So please be aware of the latest technology innovations that are happening. If you're not able to understand, ask for the trainings. These people are readily available to train whatever is needed. So that resistance has to go away. And the fear of like how we are going to understand this basic part. And that's a very interesting one thing I just I want to share here. So you know that legal firm does, I mean, legal area or the legal profession doesn't have a retirement age, right? So you can very well understand there are people who are still in the business for past 30, 40, 50, maybe around this year, many decades, 2-3 decades that they've been working. And I've just recently come to know that there are few advocates who are still not using WhatsApp. They are still on the phone. I mean, they like to interact over a phone rather than having a WhatsApp as a feature. So just imagine how, I mean, they are still not being able to cope up or accepting it. So I think acceptance is important. Do accept this. Technology is definitely going to bring lot of ease to our work. It's not going to eat away our work. It will only bring value to our work. That is what we need to understand.
Thank you, Kulwan. Ramya has one more question. I guess it's more for you. In terms of merger and acquisition due diligence, to what extent the decision can bind a basis of AI reports?
See, AI. Okay, so I tell you one thing, AI is not actually yet there where we can just blindly take all of its reports or suggestions or the whatever the data mining that we are doing with, right? There's certainly few AI tools which extract the data from very valid sources, and they actually give the source name also. So there are two pieces to it actually. One is the open source where the data can also be a hallucination because it's not coming from the right source. It's just taking it or digging it from anywhere in the net, from the internet, right? Whereas the second piece, where AI can actually bring the credibility of the source is where it's actually quoting the source and the place from where this data has been extracted. So in that regard, AI can certainly be very resourceful.
Thank you, Kulwan.
Thank you.
Hi, Ashish.
Hey, Durga, hi.
So the next question is for you. What advice would you give to law firms that are hesitant to adopt new technologies? Ashish, first introduce yourself and then go ahead with the answer.
Sure, Durga. So first of all, thank you for having me. I would like to start by thanking Mr. Chuk for this amazing initiative of starting Indian Lawyers Association and sort of giving a voice to the scattered community of lawyers, because it's not just, lawyers are such that they cannot fit into one bracket. There's litigators, there's corporate lawyers, there are in-house lawyers. So I think it's a great idea to sort of build a community. A bit about myself, I work with a B2B global SaaS company called Shield. I handle all the end-to-end legal requirements, and I'm the sole legal counsel. So there are many hats that I wear, and because the client base is spread across Europe, APAC, the US, the Middle East, there are different laws and regulations that I need to be aware of in order to help the company in the end-to-end compliance needs. I'm also a part of Indian Tech Lawyers Community, which is an idea slightly similar to Indian Lawyers Association, but more heavily focused towards building a community of tech lawyers. So that's a bit about myself. Now, coming to the question, Durga, about the advice that I would like to give to law firms who are sort of hesitant in adopting new technologies is, first of all, I would like to start off by not just law firms, but each individual lawyer has to get comfortable with the fact that technology is the future. It is here to stay. And we cannot have the same traditional approach towards how we have been doing things. Like Mr. Chuk rightly pointed out, that petitions are of hundreds and hundreds of pages, something that can be summarized in few pages. And I believe it's a great thing to discuss about, plus make certain recommendations to the judiciary as well as to putting some sort of limit to that. And I think technology comes into play here because it does a brilliant job of sort of summarizing everything. So over the top of my head, I can think that for a 10-pager or a 20-pager agreement, I can simply go and upload that document to ChatGPT, and I can ask it to summarize the entire document. So I think it's time that law firms get comfortable with this idea. And on a very practical note, I think if there's a question as to whether to adopt a technology or some sort of software into your law firm practice, is that for a law firm which has just started out, I think there's a constant tussle between the fixed cost, the fixed liabilities that the law firm has to pay. So it could be in form of the salaries it pays to its associate versus the revenue which is to be generated, and which is something that's not fixed. You do not know about the client inflow. You do not know what kind of revenue you would be making for the next month. But when you go out and hire, you are hiring with an assumption that there is going to be that amount of workload. So I think using technology can help law firms make better decisions in terms of hiring, as well as in terms of improving their efficiency with respect to their turnaround times. So say, for example, law firms could use contract lifecycle management tools like Spot Draft, like Kulwant mentioned, which is a very useful tool, which is something that I use in my day-to-day routine. And I think personally, I could not imagine being a lawyer and serving clients globally as the only legal counsel, because of the obvious reason that we all work in different timelines. And if everything has to reach to me just for the review or confirmation, that's going to prolong the entire process, especially when you operate in a highly competitive market. It's very important that the time is of very essence. One day of delay and you potentially lose the client. So all these tools help you become more and more efficient. And I personally believe that tech lawyers, and not just tech lawyers, lawyers in general, should be more engaged in creative work than repetitive tasks. I really like this quote by Naval Ravikant, where he says that everything that is repetitive in nature needs to be automized, and human beings are supposed to do more creative work. And I think as a corporate lawyer, I think, at least in terms of drafting contracts, I can see that there are a lot of repetitions. Say, for example, I work on NDAs and they are pretty much the same. The counterparty is sending me the same version. I also have the same clauses. I'm trying to protect it mutually. There's hardly any difference. But having to spend so much time on things that are repetitive in nature, I think somewhere kills productivity. It's not about having the number of billable hours. I think that should never be the goal. The goal should always be to give the work product which actually helps the client. And I think that should be the larger focus. And while talking about tech and law firms, I think we should have a global view of things. It should not be only India specific, but globally, I think law firms have moved a lot to using AI and high-end technology. So ChatGPT is a very generic example. But if we talk about tools like Harvey.ai, which recently got a $80 million funding, is something that is built on top of ChatGPT, which gives you legal specific responses. So in terms of its accuracy, it's better. And a lot of law firms like top law firms like Allen & Overy, PwC have already adopted these technologies. They have already integrated with Harvey.ai, and they claim that this helps them manage their contracts from end to end. So I think globally, if we think about it, the tech is already here. The law firms are working with high efficiency, and it's really not the topic about whether tech is relevant to the legal field or not. It's about how long we as lawyers are going to take to get comfortable with this idea of using tech in our daily tasks. So yeah, I think that is my sort of advice to the law firms.
So Ashish, what would you say are 2 or 3 things that are strikingly kind of wrong with our legal system in India? And like if India wants to be a first world nation by 2047, we can't have a third-rate legal system. So if you look at the world judicial ranking, we're in the bottom 10% or 20%. What do you think are, if you were the prime minister or the law minister, what is 3-4 things that you think you would fix? And what is wrong, first of all, in your mind?
That's a great question. I think one is that, so I come from a corporate background. So I deal with a lot of regulators. So I deal with the RBI, I deal with SEBI. And a major compliance issue that I face on a day-to-day basis is that there is no proper repository and a update repository which is maintained for me to know what are the compliance. So if I'm running a fintech, or if I am advising a fintech, I do not know all the regulations. I have to totally rely on Google and certain acts that are out there, but I don't have a repository which gives me a overview of all the compliances that I have to ensure. So I think somewhere on the regulatory side, the work has to be done. Now, if our goal is to be a developed country soon, I think ease of doing business is something that government is already focusing on, but it won't be possible. It won't be possible for some foreign company to establish their process and establish their businesses in India because of the complicated compliance issues that are there. So I think from a regulatory perspective, I would advise, or I would rather like to have an updated repository of all the compliances that are required. From a litigation perspective, I am not an expert, but I think the small bright side of COVID was that everything moved online, and even the court proceedings were happening virtually. And there were few high courts who would have live streaming on YouTube as well. So I think it gives a greater transparency. But as soon as we got to the normal routine, I think things went back to offline. with having all the processes set up offline. So I think it's important for us to adopt these practices more. We should be totally ready to move completely digital in case if that is required. Yeah, so I think these are like two factors over the top of my head.
So can I ask you a silly question? Like, why are the young people of India not in revolution mode, and why are we putting up with all this nonsense? Why is everybody just not saying anything? Why aren't there strikes? Why aren't there morchas? Why aren't there marches? We're in jail. The plumbers can advertise, we can advertise. We can take matters on a contingency basis. Any country where contingency basis lawyering is not allowed has a sign outside that says no justice for the poor in this country, because the poor can only afford justice if there is contingency lawyering. Why isn't there noise being made? Do you know?
I think that's a very thought-provoking question, Mr. Chugh. I think because mostly, like I said, lawyers especially can be great advocates in raising the voice and giving a voice to the normal general public. But the fact that the entire community is so scattered and there is no union as such, although there are like local unions within the legal fraternity, I don't think the focus is always towards betterment of public and giving a voice to the public, but it's rather more on a administrative level. So I think it's more on the, so I wouldn't say I'm very optimistic about how things are going. I think we are finally realizing the importance of building a community, making representations. So for example, on a regulatory side, we have a lot of think tanks and communities that are coming together, like Internet and Mobile Association of India, who can actually go to government and make certain recommendations regarding acts, any issues that they may face. They have the right or they have a channel through which they can communicate. So I think on a larger level, because it's a big country with huge population, it's very difficult to raise some important issues and get enough coverage for that. Social media is a great medium, but again, we are sort of new to social media in those regards. I think it can be used in a much better way. And secondly, I think in general, people need to change from individual mindset to sort of community mindset. It's not just someone else's problem, but somewhere it affects me also. And even if it doesn't affect me, I need to do something about it, is the approach one can take to sort of start with any revolution.
Every single problem that you mentioned, why this is not happening, why that's not happening, is the same crowd that kicked out the British Empire 75 years ago. Before independence, lawyers had clout. Of the 100 people that got us independence, maybe 75 were lawyers. And I don't have an exact number, but Nehru, Jinnah, Gandhi, Sardar Patel, Lala Lajpat Rai, you name it. And back then, the restrictions on them were 1000x% more than they are now. They all went to jail, they got lathi charged, they got endless dramas. There was no internet, there was no cell phone. But they managed to kick out the British Empire that had guns, and we had lathis. What's the problem now? Now we got India independence, us lawyers, but all of India was in jail. Let's say 350 million people. We kicked the British out. The doors opened. We let 350 million minus 300,000 lawyers. We let all of them out. The 300,000 lawyers stayed inside the prison. And then we put a lock back on and threw the key. Everybody in India is free except for us. Tell me one other plumber can advertise, the carpenter can advertise, but we can't. Somebody says gentleman's profession. Okay, that's the biggest hogwash if there existed one. And if we're truly a gentleman's profession, then I think all the other professions should be told not to advertise, and the gentleman's profession should be advertised the most, right? It's like God cannot advertise in India. And if you think about it, the most advertisements in India is for God. But somehow God is beyond a gentleman's profession. Anyways, we're in prison. Article 19 of the Indian Constitution, there shall be no restraint on trade. I don't see an asterisk that says except for lawyers. And one lawyer in India says to me, yeah, but the Constitution says no restraint on trade. We're not a trade. Really, in 2024, lawyers are not a trade. If we're not a trade, how are we supposed to help the 55 million businesses of India comply with law and prosper and grow and etc., etc., if we're not a trade? And this is old-fashioned British language of difference between trade and service. But, so some poor woman in United States filed a lawsuit against the president of United States and got a $80 million judgment. Do you think she paid the lawyers a dime? No, she didn't. She doesn't have money, but she got a $80 million judgment. The lawyers will keep half because of appeal or whatever, and she'll get half. The purpose of law is to protect the powerless from the powerful and the government. And the only way the powerless have access to justice is A, if justice works, and B, if they can afford a lawyer. And in India, both of those doors have been closed. Then finally, the poor get to know of information through advertisements and whatever, and lawyers are banned from advertising. So everything is being done to keep the poor, not have them. It's not like that the middle class has justice either. Justice delayed is no justice anyways. But my question remains, why are we putting up with all this and not saying anything?
I think, Mr. Chugh, pre-independence, we had a common enemy. We had a common agenda in mind. We all want to get freedom, but once we got freedom, I think the individual approach started, because I think pre-independence also, it was all about earning your living, making sure that you eat for the day, your family eats for the day. So I think it will take some time, but I would like to say everything that you are saying is very thought-provoking for me as a young lawyer. I do not have the answers, but definitely these are the things we should discuss in length and do something about it.
Because you're young is why I am barking at you, because we failed. Our parents and grandparents who were lawyers have failed. I have failed. I'm asking you to step up. I think this chalta hai attitude of India forever, we lawyers need to change. And lawyers did change. You look at who got us independence. And I think first of all, we need to recognize that it's a big problem. There is no justice. Without justice, we cannot become a first world nation. You mentioned foreign companies wanting to do startup, setting up shop and all of that. But I think that here's a sentence that's a mantra in life that we can have. And the mantra is, there is no problem in this world. The only problem is not finding a solution. It'll take 1 minute for the Bar Council or the legal ministry to change the rule that lawyers can start working on a contingency basis. I have spoken to people inside the law ministry. I have spoken to many senior lawyers, many prominent lawyers, what we call important lawyers in India. And they're surprised that lawyers cannot work on a contingency basis. And when I say to them, they say, really? This is the people working for the law ministry. And then lawyers are surprised, ministry people are surprised that lawyers cannot advertise. So it takes 1 minute, right? And 21,000 judges in India, 1.5 million lawyers. There are hundreds of government officials involved in the legal business. Don't tell me that nobody's ever thought of putting a page limit on pleadings throughout the world, throughout the developed world, for every state court, federal court, criminal court, bankruptcy court, corporate law, family law. For everything, there is a page limit, 5 pages, 10, 15, 20. California, for instance, has a law that if a case is not tried and finished and adjudicated within 5 years, it will be dismissed in favor of the defendant with prejudice, cannot file it again. All this doesn't take much at all. Minor, tiny tweaks. These switches we turn on and off, and the entire industry changes. And so it doesn't take a whole bunch. This is not rocket science. We went to the moon 60 years ago. Why can't we have a page limit? And I told a judge in India that, hey, we have page limits here for everything. And he couldn't believe me. He says, in writing? I said, yeah, in writing. California Appeals Court has a 70,000 word page limit. And on top of the petition, we have to sign a piece of paper under penalty of perjury that I have checked. It's less than 70,000 words. If it is more than one word more than 70,000, they're going to kick out your petition, your appeal. And if the time to file an appeal is run out, then you're out of luck. And nothing you can do. The court will not listen. So, like I said, there's no problem in this world. The only problem is not finding a solution. And all of you youngsters on this call, and this is one of the biggest purposes of ILA, is that I read once, get involved in a project that for sure will not be done by the time your life is done in this planet. I'm like, okay, this ILA seems like a good idea. This will never be done in my lifetime. So, okay, good, carry on. But let's start making noise and start spreading the word with youngsters that, hey, the oldies that are out there in the street, in the government, in judiciary, in the general counsel world, in the legal world, in the lawyer world, they're not gonna get it, and they're making money from the current bad system. You can't ask them to change it. There's no way they're gonna change it. Why? And so, okay, fine, that generation's gone, but let's not your middle age, your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s be ruined because we can't do 5 simple things. Okay, I talk a lot, so my wife says. So, Durga, who's left?
All are done. So,
Okay, good.
yeah. So,
Wonderful.
anyone
Keep
has
up the great work, all of you. Make a lot of money, become very successful. We have to fix India. From year 1 to 1750, India was the richest country in the world. Then from 1750 to 1991, our share of the world wealth went from 25% to 2.5%. Fortunately, the climb back up has started. And from 2.5%, we are 5% of the world GDP now. I hope God is listening, because I am going to say to God that, God, you're very unfair. And there is delayed justice in your department, God, just like there's delayed justice in India. If there was justice in your house, God, India is 17% of the world's population. India should have 17% of the world's wealth. We're at $3,000 per year per capita income for an average Indian. For us to become a first world nation, it needs to be $15,000 per year per person. That's 5x. Half of this 5x, 2.5x, I am convinced you guys, you lawyers of the country, can fix. Fix the legal system. We will get half of the 12,000 increase. 6,000 will come from a liberated India. Do you realize, because of the miserable legal system we have in India, 95% of the country does not have access to justice. So let's do something. All right, Durga will do a panel next in a month or so on how young people can, how lawyers, are you guys under 30? The 5 of you?
Yeah.
Aditi? Samriti?
Yes.
Okay, if you're 31, we can make it 31. But okay, how lawyers under 35 can fix the legal system of India. Let's do a panel and come back and bring your friend.
Sure.
All right.
Absolutely. That would be amazing.
Okay, good. Take care of India. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Arjun.
Thank you so much for having us.
All
Thank you
right.
for having
My
us.
pleasure.
It was great talking.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, all of you. Bye-bye.
Get on the board of the local ILA chapters in your city. Ask Durga.
Absolutely. It's been long overdue, so
Your
we,
school one.
we really must, actually. Sure.
We've been talking about it for 4 years with you.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
We'll certainly be in touch with for this.
There's 2 good days to join ILA local board in your city in 1947 or today. Let's do it today. Thank you.
Thank you.